Hey guys, it's Derek from Walker & Wood. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can make a bar cart, but not just any ordinary bar cart. On the top of this, we have epoxied in bottle tops. The customer collects them, and so we incorporated those into the design using some epoxy. Speaking of epoxy, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video. That is Untitled Epoxy. Thank you so much for sending me some epoxy for this. If you want to get your own epoxy from Untitled, head on over to their website, and whenever you're checking out, use the discount code DWalker for 20% off your purchase. So thank you Untitled for that. Stay tuned for this video. Again, if you like, give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more.
The 2x4s come with a round edge, and so what I'm doing here is I'm running it through the table saw just to take off a little shim on either side to give it a square face front. I had a 2x10 piece board lying in the shop, and so what I did here was I took off the round edge on it as well, and then after that I ripped it down to the same width as the 2x4s. After the pieces were ripped down to width, I took it over to the miter saw and I cut these legs to the height that I wanted. I cut them all at 29 inches. I decided to use pocket holes for this piece, so I took the legs over to the Craig jig and I went to town on those pocket holes. So what I'm doing here is I'm gluing the edge of the bottom support, and then what I'm doing is I'm resting it on two pieces of 3/4 inch ply just to lift it up a little bit, and then I'm using the 2x4 spacer that I cut off earlier just to lift this off the ground a little bit and make sure that I have the same measurements the whole way around. It was then time to cut the slats, so I took this piece of 1x10 over to the chop saw and I cut it down to the length that I wanted, and after that I then took it over to the table saw and ripped it down to the width that I wanted for these slats. Now it was time to attach these slats to the frame, so I applied a nice amount of glue to each end, and then I used my Ryobi brad nailer to nail it in place. Then I got a thin strip of wood, I ripped it down to about 1/4 inch, and I used that as my spacer and a guide as I went along. Once that was done, it was time to assemble another side frame to take another row of slats, and what I did here was I cut off some scraps and I leveled those either side to make sure that I got the same height the whole way around this piece. I then took a piece of 1/2 inch plywood to the table saw and ripped this down to the width that I wanted for the top of this piece, and then cutting it to length on the miter saw. Of course the miter saw wouldn't cut the whole side, so what I had to do was cut as much as I could and then flip it over and finish it off. Here I'm applying a little bit of glue to each of the legs, that way whenever this piece is sitting on it's got a little bit of extra strength. Once in place, I pre-drilled all my holes using a countersink drill bit, and then I screwed it in place. Unfortunately I lost some video footage, but what I'm doing here is I'm attaching some edge banding, and what I'm using is a little bit of 1x4, and I've cut off a miter on each side to give a really clean and a nice look. And what I'm doing here is I'm applying a nice bit of glue to the edge. I'm putting it in place using a little scrap piece of wood to find my height, and once I found that height I then nail it in place. Again, sorry about that footage that I lost, but once I've got all of the miters in place, I put wood putty on and then I get to sanding all over. After it was sanded, I used a Rust-Oleum Kona stain, and whenever I applied it first it looked really dark, and so I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out, but as you see, once I begin to wipe away the excess, you can really see the grain pop through. and I actually love using this color, so I'm going to be using this in several builds moving forward. Then I went to staining the top, getting that ready for the epoxy pour. But before I poured epoxy, I actually went around the edges with clear silicone. And then once I did that, I went to my total boat and I mixed here 1-to-1 pump. So 1 pump of resin to 1 pump of hardener, mixed that really well, and as you can see here, I put it on using a paintbrush and just a really thin coat on there, but enough just to stick down the bottle tops, because you don't want to put the bottle tops down and then pour epoxy, because what's going to happen is they're going to float to the top. So what I did was I put down a thin layer and then pressed down all these bottle tops and let that sit overnight so that these were not going to go anywhere. And then it was time to do the pour. Now I took my time with this. Instead of doing one large pour, I actually did 3 smaller pours, because I thought that I might get an even and more smooth coat. After I applied the epoxy, I then went over it very lightly with my torch, just to torch out some of the bubbles in the mixture. Then I give the whole table a coat of General Finishes Armor Seal. I started by going over the top here, just to give it one nice coat. And then I went over the whole coat. Actually, instead of using a brush, I used my Graco paint sprayer, and I give 2 coats to the whole underside of this piece. And then we are ready for delivery. And here you can see the final piece, an epoxy bottle top bar cart. Thanks so much for watching. Again, if you like this, please click the like button and hit subscribe if you'd like to see some more videos. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching.